armoured cruisers of the late 19th and early 20th centuries could generally follow one of two design trends. Either they would take a theme from some preceding ships, such as small armoured or large protected cruisers, except now they'd have more guns and armour and somewhat less speed, or they could take inspiration from contemporary pre-dreadnought battleships, except now they'd have less guns and armour and more speed. The latter type tended to be somewhat more powerful than the former. The previous Italian armoured cruisers, the Garibaldis, had been of the scaled-up type. The next class, the Pisas, would be of the scaled-down type. This led to an odd overlap, as Italy's then current pre-dreadnoughts, the Regina Elena class, were a little bit out of step with everybody else's ideas, having only half the main battery of the average pre-dreadnought, but an exceptionally heavy secondary battery, coupled with lighter armour and high speed that meant that, along with the Japanese Ibuki class, they can be argued to be a kind of proto-battle cruiser. Therefore, the Pisas, at the heavier end of the armoured cruiser category, began to overlap with the actual battle line units of the fleet, and under some Italian definitions, they actually tipped over into second-class battleship territory. The ships were armed with 4 10-inch guns in a pair of twin turrets, one fore and one aft, backed up by no less than 4 more twin turrets carrying 7.5-inch guns, 2 per side, plus 16 single 3-inch guns and 8 single 47mm guns for dealing with torpedo boats. 3 underwater torpedo tubes completed this loadout, with the ship protected by an armour belt with a maximum thickness of 8 inches, along with 2 inches of deck armour, which left a ship that displaced just under 10,000 tons and moved at just over 23 knots, thanks to a pair of vertical triple expansion engines that sent 20,000 indicated horsepower to a pair of screws. The category of a second-class battleship certainly fitted them at the time of design. As compared to HMS Swiftsure, a contemporary such vessel, she had a similar main battery, slightly better armour and considerably better speed, in exchange for a somewhat smaller secondary battery. 2 ships were built for Italy, Pisa and Amalfi, whilst a third was eventually sold, whilst still on the stocks, to Greece. With a slightly different gun battery and other changes, this would become the Georgios Averof. However, with the Italian ships laid down in 1905 but not commissioning until late 1909, by the time they entered service, a new type of ship had entered the field, the full-on battle cruiser. And there was some speculation on if they now fell into this category. They were of a similar level of armament to SMS Blucher, with slightly better protection and slightly less speed, but in the end they, like Blucher, would fall slightly short of that category. Like many ships of this period, her armament was laid out hexagonally, meaning that only half her secondary battery could be brought to bear at any one target, which limited her offensive power in a duel somewhat compared to her on-paper sheer number of gun stats. On the other hand, it did leave a considerable amount of all-round firepower for occasions when you might be outnumbered and surrounded, something the Greeks would exploit with their ship on a number of occasions. There is a separate video on the Georgios Averof if you want to find out about its career, but the Italian ships would take part in the little-known war between Italy and the Ottoman Empire in 1911 to 1912, which is where, amongst other things, Italy acquired control of parts of North Africa, something that would cause no end of problems for the Allies come World War II. But back in World War I, the 2 ships would have rather different careers. Amalfi was torpedoed by a German U-boat flying the Austro-Hungarian flag in mid-1915, and so didn't accomplish a tremendously huge amount, whilst Pisa, taking into account her sister's fate, played things quite a bit more carefully, swapping out her various guns below the secondary battery for a larger uniform 3-inch battery that included a number of anti-aircraft variants. Having survived the war with a few bombardments and a lot of blockading to show for her efforts, Pisa would become a training vessel, as time and technology had moved on. She would last in this role until 1937, when she would inevitably be sold for scrapping.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pinned post for dry dock questions.